Good morning, and actually Merry Christmas. This is something, what we're doing right here. Ken is taping, I'm sitting here. This was kind of initiated in 2020 during COVID when we weren't meeting on a regular basis. So we decided that rather than do something else, since we were meeting, that we would record something for Christmas Day. So I've always felt that it was really unusual for people to go through Christmas Eve and all these things and then not get together for a worship service on Christmas Day. So we've always, until recently, had worship services on Christmas Day. And I would say, come in your jammies, bring your favorite toy, be sure and bring some fruit cake, whatever, and we'll just have a lovely evening, a lovely time, lovely morning. And what happened was there was probably 10, 15, maybe 18 people who would do that. And it's not that just a few people gathered, it doesn't lend any diminishment to the fact that we came to point to Jesus Christ. No, we just thought that maybe it's a good idea to spend time at home, in your comfort, and be able to be thankful for each other and for the God we serve at home. So that's what we're doing as you witness this. If you do, I'll be at home with my family. Ken Carrington will be at home with his family, and hopefully most of us are there enjoying each other, but also recognizing why we worship in the first place. A few years ago I wrote something that said, the sun has come up and it's not our doing. In the midst of the chaos of the markets and in the sands of the desert battles, I'm sorry to say, there's grace this morning and there's hope because of the one of whom the evangelist spoke. In such lovely terms. A child that was born bloody and wailing and writhing and soiling and smiling just like us. A disappointment to many just like us. But he was to be the one around whom all people on this planet would configure their years. So whether you choose to call it Anno Domini or BC or BCE or CE, it's about Jesus. It's about Jesus. Every so often it bears repeating a wonderful bit of writing that pierced the secular mainstream in a way that few may know. Each year in the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, it closes every year with something called the Living Nativity. The text below is read during this scene. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. Then for 3 years he was an itinerant preacher. He never had a family or owned a home. He never set foot inside a big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place he was born. He never wrote a book or held an office. He did none of the things that are usually accompanying greatness. And while he was still a young man, the tide of popular opinion turned against him. His friends deserted him. He was turned over to his enemies, and he went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves. And while he was dying, his executioners gambled for the only piece of property he had, his coat. And when he was dead, he was taken down and laid in a borrowed grave. So 20 centuries have come and gone, and today, he is the central figure for much of the human race. All the armies that ever marched and all the navies that ever sailed and all the parliaments that ever sat and all the kings that ever reigned put together have not affected the life of man upon this earth as powerfully as this one solitary life. Jesus Christ says to you, I can replace the frustration in your heart with peace. I can replace the guilt and the resentment and the shame and the grudges with forgiveness. Jesus says, I can replace the worry and the anxiety with confidence and faith. I can replace depression or despair with hope. I can replace emptiness with meaning and purpose. And I can replace confusion with clarity. But I'm not going to break down the door of your heart. You've got to invite me in. It's my prayer this day and this year that we invite Jesus into our lives, and that the lives of our family are so affected by this grand historic church in service to Jesus Christ. You know, Jesus comes that we might receive him, and we come as he receives us. One last thing. Jesus never says, my way or the highway. Jesus says, my way or your way. So in this year that's coming up with all of its chaos and all of its occasional meanness and all of those things that can dominate the internet and the headlines, let's remember this. Jesus, God, came to be with us that we might know God's love and we might share it. Merry Christmas. See you next Sunday.